Hey guys, Cabin Game Fever here this time. I've changed my name again. This is my new YouTube channel and it's going to be a place for uploading all kinds of playthroughs from different consoles and reviews and talking about my collection and everything else. Lots of good stuff. This video we're going to be continuing my journey through all the games that I beat for the NES. So if this is the first time you're watching this, then please go back. My other videos are on my YouTube channel. They were previously uploaded to Instagram, but they're now here, and all the remaining videos that I do in this series and any other long playthroughs and other videos are going to be on YouTube from now on here on Cabin Game Fever. So without further ado, let's get on. We're going to be looking at E and F this time, the letters E and F of the games that I beat for the NES last year, which was all 234 UK titles. Right, if you want to know more about that, check out the description below the video and you can find out all about the charity event that I did. But yeah, let's carry on. Letter E, kicking things off. Eliminator Boat Duel. This was a racing game by Rare. I think we've already talked quite a lot about Rare and how much pain and suffering I had to go through beating Rare. This one isn't up there with things like Cobra Triangle or Battletoads. This is it's pretty tough racer. I'm struggling to think if there's actually any easy races on NES. Maybe one or two, but there aren't really that many easy races, to be honest. They're all kind of challenging. This is up there, but it's not like the hardest, and it's actually really fun. This is one I took on quite early, so perhaps my skills weren't as honed as they became later on. And I did find it quite challenging. It took me quite a few playthroughs. I think I played it quite a bit actually before I even started the challenge, and I quite liked it. I'd got quite far in it, but hadn't completed it or anything. So that maybe helped me a little bit when I came to playing it. But it's quite tough. Basically, its principle is that you go through like many races. There's like loads of different guys that you face. They all kind of jive talking characters. In the mixture, you start off with a kind of spotty nerd and you end up with this sort of super cool guy at the top, and as you go through people, the races get much longer and harder, and you have to kind of use your race winnings to build up your ship and like do repairs, but also like buy add-ons, and like you need to buy the add-ons because later on in the stages, if you haven't got certain upgrades to the ship, you're not going to win. I mean, there's a drag race at one point where if you haven't got like the turbo accelerator or whatever, or maybe I can't remember what it's called, but whatever it is that gives you a quicker sort of acceleration, then you're never going to win that race. Equally, like you need to sort of build up your ship so that the boat's like endurance is at its peak for the last few races, because they're super long and you just will not survive unless you've got a fully kind of built up ship. So yeah, there's that side of it. There's a bit of learning about which things to upgrade in which order, I suppose. I think you only get one life. If you can lose one race, and then after that, the second race you lose, it's game over. So that's quite harsh. There's no continues, and there are a lot of races. The races get longer and longer, and the way they're broken up, it's kind of like there's two modes. You've got like a bird's eye view overhead mode, which is my preferred mode in the game. I don't know, it's kind of similar to Micro Machines a little bit. It looks nicer. It kind of I think it works better for 8-bit and for the NES. There's another mode which is a kind of forced 3D. It's you're behind the ship, third person, and just sort of looking at it from from the back, and it's kind of NES 3D. It looks okay. It kind of looks okay for what it is, but I think that now it looks quite dated. And of the two, yeah, definitely the overhead one looks nicer. The thing is though that early on, like a lot of the races, you're only doing like one or the other mode, but then as the game progresses, you start doing races that have like sections to them. So you'll go from like the overhead section to like the behind the the third person perspective section, and then back to the overhead, back to the third person each time. Keeps jumping around. And the races get really long, and it's kind of annoying because any like lead that you've built up in one of the previous sections, you always start the next section level with the other racer. So it's kind of annoying because it's like, what's the point? It doesn't matter how far behind you are, you're going to start pretty much next to them anyway. which kind of leads you to thinking, well, actually, you know, save some turbos, because you get loads of turbo boosts, and the races, there's loads of boosters found in the courses. So you need to kind of reserve them, because pretty much whoever's got the most turbos will win, because especially on the last like section of the race, you definitely need that lead, and you want to be turboing to get yourself over the line ahead of your opponent. But you know, it's a cool game. I liked it a lot. It's quite charming. It's rare, so it controls nicely, and it plays nicely. So I recommend it. Definitely recommend that one. It's a good call. Right, moving on. Next up, Elite. This was a game published by Imagineer, but it was on the home computer scene. I don't know the history of this. Does it tell me? Yes, David Braben and Ian Bell. I think Ian Bell's the one that owns the license to it now. I think they had a fallout possibly over this game. I'm not sure. But those two guys designed this game, and they released it on the home computer scene. I'm gonna embarrass myself because I don't know which computer. Maybe the BBC Micro. I don't know. You guys will have to tell me. It's hard to say. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I know it was ported to things like the Spectrum and probably the Amstrad and things like that. But I think it might be in the BBC Micro. Anyway, it came to the NES, which was a surprise. I think this was released only over in the PAL region, maybe just in the UK. I don't know, because it was a UK-made game. But it's very unlike anything else on the NES, and it definitely doesn't feel really suited to the NES, really, to be honest with you, because essentially this is how do you describe it? It's kind of like a flight simulator, a space simulator. But it's not about just simulating the ship. I mean, a lot of your time is spent on the ship, but it's more of a kind of life sim. I mean, you are playing a kind of like a smuggler or a cargo. You don't actually have to smuggle illegal goods, so theoretically, you're just a delivery driver. You know, did you ever want to play an Uber driver? Sorry, not Uber. Did you ever want to play like a Deliveroo in space? Well, here's your opportunity, man. This game has you flying between like a huge galaxy. It's I don't know if it's obviously not infinite, but it's massive. Okay, and within it are loads of different planets, like hundreds of planets, but they're only really realized by a little blurb of text, one little picture, and that's it. That's all you get. The rest of it's left to your imagination, and your aim is to kind of land on these planets. And buy goods, and then go to other planets, sell those goods, and use the money to buy more goods, sell those goods. But basically, keep building up money until your credit rating's higher, and you get a higher rank, and you can upgrade your ship. I don't think there's a lot of side missions. There are a few that kind of pop up randomly, but essentially you're just a delivery driver, really. You know, buying and selling goods, delivering them between planets, and avoiding combat when you land at new planets. The combat is quite cool in some ways. The whole game is a sort of wireframe mesh. It's another reason why it doesn't look very NES. Imagine sort of Star Fox, but in black and white. That's kind of where you're at. I mean, it's quite a lot more basic than what Star Fox looked like. But for NES, it's highly impressive. And, you know, once you understand the radar, but basically once you understand how to control the ship, because the controls of the ship are really awkward. Like, it's definitely designed for like a keyboard or something. You need the manual to really understand how to use like the controller and how to do all the things. Like, I mean, even saving the game, it's got a battery save in it, but you know, even saving the game is hard and confusing. It takes a while to learn how to do that. But yeah, it's a great game if that's the kind of thing you want. It's extremely basic, and you need a lot of imagination. But like, there's this kind of strange appeal to it. I don't know. Have you ever played like an early text adventure on one of those early computers? I mean, this isn't that level of earliness, but it kind of maybe falls a little bit towards that category of being just something that demands much more imagination than the game's going to give you. So yeah, it's a very bygone thing, but it's quite a unique title, and I don't know. I feel like it's quite a special title, to be honest with you. Okay, here's one that is probably seen as very special to a lot of people. This is a launch title, Excite Bike, which is a motocross like scrambler bike racer, I guess. I mean, is it a racer? Yeah, it is a racer, but you are racing against other people. But is it 2-player? I can't even remember now. I don't think it is. No, it's not. So basically, the computer is racing in. There are other races on the tracks. You can do the tracks without the other races, but if you do game B mode, you do the same tracks but with the racers, and so that makes it harder. But the fact is, you're not actually racing. You're just racing against a clock to get your position. So they've got a set time for what is like first place, second place, third place, and there are lots of other bikers on the course, but they're not necessarily racing against you per se. They're just going to get in your way and knock you over. There's an infinite supply of them, and so it makes it hard. In terms of actually kind of beating this game, this is a weird one. I mean, I think you can do like set races or something like that, but basically there are 5 races in the game, and there's, like I said, there's game A mode and game B mode. They're the same races in both modes. The difference is that game B mode has other bikers there which are getting in your way, making it a lot harder. And so my aim was just beat it on game B mode. I didn't see the point of doing A. So I set myself a challenge of just getting first place in every race. I felt like that was the best thing that I could do. So that's what I set out to do. And it was very hard to do the final race. Basically, the first 3 races were quite easy. I think it didn't take me too long. The 4th race was a challenge. I mean, that was a considerable challenge to do the 4th race. But the 5th race, oh my God, I don't know how many times I did that. It must have been closing on 3 figures, because you basically need to race it perfectly to get a first place. You might be allowed to crash once, possibly twice, I can't remember. I think there's something like 3 or 4 laps. But you basically got to do it perfectly, and the other drivers in the track will do everything they can to kind of get in your way. They're always like changing lanes just as you're about to overtake them, or just as you're getting near them, they sort of change into you all the time. It's kind of like random when they change, but they're just programmed to be arseholes, and they certainly are. And also the thing about this game is there's a real nuance to how it controls. It takes a bit of time to learn, but like when you first start playing it, you just kind of hit a jump, go up, and then land. But actually, what you want to be doing is kind of maneuvering the bike in the air so that you sort of, I can't remember exactly, you kind of want to wheelie to get over things, and then when you're hitting air, you want to be like pointing the nose down, which makes you go faster. But then you don't want to land on the nose because that will slow you down. So you need to land. I guess you land flat. I can't remember. Maybe you land at a slight wheelie or you land flat. Either way, the way you land and the way you are in the air, all of that makes a huge difference to your speed. So you need to constantly be adjusting yourself in the air to get those extras, few meters, because that can make a big difference. If you're in the air and you're positioning yourself nose down, you can avoid mud that's underneath you, so that you don't land in the mud, which means you don't slow down. Equally, if you're landing, for example, on like a slope, then if you positioned yourself rather than landing that way, or even landing flat, if you position yourself like that, you're gonna land in a way that's gonna make you a bit faster on that climb. So there's got a lot of nuance to it for a game that appears quite simple at first, and it's a lot of fun. And maybe it doesn't say 2-player. I feel like it should be 2-player, but it doesn't say it, so I guess it isn't, which is a shame. There's a course editor in there as well, which is really cool. So you make your own courses. Again, very novel for the time. But yeah, a very hard game to get first place in every race. It took me quite a long time. Okay, we're on to F. There's only 3 E's. That's why we're doing E and F. F15 Strike Eagle is the last flight sim that I had to beat, I think. This is the last one I did. And it was probably one of the easiest. So I was very happy with that. I can't even remember that much about it, even though it was the last one that I played. But it's fairly forgettable. I mean, it's one of the more realistic flight sim. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do. The big difference between the way to play this game is that there's difficulty settings, which you can choose. And don't ask me to remember the names of them all because I can't. But there's 4 of them, I think. And whichever one you choose has quite a big effect on the difficulty so it has quite a big effect on the things that you actually have to do in the plane. Like if you play on the easier one, you can pretty much go into an auto land sequence I think it changes your weapons automatically and does your thrusters and all that kind of stuff. And the harder settings you choose, the more you have to do. I think I went for, I think I kind of coasted it on this game because, as I said, you know, there was no rules for my challenge in terms of beating it on hardest difficulties. It was just get on a game by game basis. The idea was just to beat the game. So for this one, I think the end screen was exactly the same for all settings, so it didn't really make any difference which one I chose. So I think I chose difficulty setting 2. Some of the levels I did on 3. I haven't explained, but the way the game is, there are multiple levels that you can choose from. I think you might be able to pick them all from the beginning, or perhaps not, maybe you have to unlock them. But you can do each level as many times as you like to get points. And after you've got a certain amount of points or experience, you get the end screen. Or you get to the highest rank that you can get. I think it's about rank. The highest rank you can get, maybe colonel or something, or flight lieutenant. That's kind of where the game ends. You might be able to carry on after that, but you're not going to get a higher rank. Anyway, the harder difficulty you choose, the more points you get. So really, it's not really cheating to do it on an easier setting, because all it's doing is making your game longer. Because you know, I think I did it on, say, setting 2. It just took me longer. Some missions I did on 3. But there is a password, so it doesn't even matter if you die. You can just restart from the password. But the problem is that the levels are quite long. There's quite a lot of objectives to do inside them. So say you choose level 3 difficulty, you know, you spend 20 minutes doing the level, or 15 minutes, and then you die at the end. It's just 15 minutes of time wasted. So yeah, not my favourite anyway. I mean, like I said, it's an okay flight sim. I guess if you're into those things, it's probably one of the better ones. Certainly more realistic, but yeah, not for me. I don't really like them. All right, Faxanadu. Is that how you pronounce it, or is it Faxanadu or Faxanadu? I don't even know. I'm going to say Faxanadu or Faxandu. That's how I've always called it. It is a RPG in the style of kind of a bit of a Zelda 2, I guess. I mean, it's not like Battle of Olympus where it's literally just the Zelda 2 engine, you know, clone. This has got its own engine, or its own, you know, design. But you know, it's that kind of side-scroll platforming RPG-esque type thing. There's no overworld map per se. There is sort of overworld, but like you're kind of walking around between towns, and you know, there are different areas of the game. I think the gameplay takes place inside a tree, which is quite cool. It's like this idea, this is a micro world of dwarfs, I think it is, and there's an evil that's infected one of the elves or the dwarfs possibly, and it made them evil, and you're playing the other clan, whatever that is. I can't remember the story. I think that's the story. Anyway, you're traveling around this tree basically, but essentially it's just like a normal world with different places, different towns, all the rest of it. But I just like the idea that it's inside a tree. I thought it was quite cool. And this is a microcosm world. But yeah, you're traveling around, but it's the usual stuff. You go to dungeons, kind of like sort of not as Zelda-esque type dungeons, but there are, you know, harder areas, you know, castles and whatever that you need to go to and kill bosses and get items to level up. Talk to people in towns and get clues and buy keys. Yeah, generally it's a very fun game. It works well. A little bit confusing at times, especially at the beginning. I think there's a bit of demand on how to sort of play it, but there are some ways to manipulate the game. I can't remember them all off the top of my head. I remember there were things to do with, I think when you level up, there's a lot of leveling up. Every time you level up, your base level for like hit points and money and XP, I think, resets to a certain amount. So and then sometimes, like, yeah, this is how you do it. So that it has a base level. So, for example, when you die, you'll start from those levels, which is nice. It means it avoids a lot of grinding. So rather than going back to 0, you know, when you're on level like 20 or 30, you'll start with like, I don't know, 5,000 gold, for example, rather than 0. Which is nice, because it's kind of like saying, you know, well, later on in the game things are really expensive, so we're not going to make you waste time, you know, picking up 5,000 gold, which won't buy you anything. But what's neat about that is that you can use that to your advantage. Where, for example, you've bought something that's cost loads of money and you've actually at 0, just kill yourself. You know, save it, kill yourself, and then, you know, you'll be back to 5,000. So that's kind of a nice way to manipulate the game. There's probably a few other things too. I think with keys is that there's a trick thing with keys as well. But there's a lot of key buying in this game, which is a bit of a shame. I think every door that needs a key, once you've gone through it, you have to go and buy another bloody key, even if you've unlocked it. So that sucked. But other than that, it's good. Some of the dungeons are quite tough to find your way. It's not a hard game, I don't think, for me. But yeah, finding your way, like the last dungeon was a bit tricky, but a cool game. I really like it. Like one of the better RPGs. I think it's one that not a lot of people know about, and I think that it's one that yeah, doesn't get enough recognition really. Okay, Ferrari Grand Prix Challenge is a F1 simulator racer. One of a couple. There was certainly one or two anyway. And let me think about this one. I'm just trying to remember between the two of them. This is definitely the harder of the two. There's another one later on, which we're going to talk about, turbo racing. And this is the harder one, mainly because turbo racing has a turbo button, and I don't think this one does. This game is pretty nice. It controls nice. It looks nice. Can you switch modes? I don't think you can switch modes. I think you kind of stuck with a kind of behind the car camera type thing. Works quite well. Like I said, it looks nice. And there's a lot of courses. I'm pretty sure there is a password for every level. I think. I'm pretty sure there is, which means it kind of a casual play. But the races are long. There's lots of laps to them. You do need to enter the pits. The pits, I believe, are automatic. It's nothing on the scale of Days of Thunder. I mean, I don't want to talk about the game anymore. I talked about it enough. I've talked about it too much, really, when I was doing my D video. But yeah, it's nothing on that scale. But it's quite tough to win races in this game. And I think that's mainly because the top sort of 5 or so cars are real arseholes. I mean, most of the cars prior to that, generally you can just easily overtake. They're just there. They don't really try and block you as you go past them. But when you get to those top 5 races, yeah, it starts getting very hard. And I think probably the worst mechanic is that if you take a crash on another car, you'll spin out. And I think they spin out too, but they just go straight away. Doesn't matter if they've hit you from behind or whatever. Like you'll both spin and then they're just off. Meanwhile, you have to sort of go through the process of building up your acceleration, and so that's kind of sucks. You're always at a disadvantage if you take a hit. I don't think the other cars enter the pits either. So yeah, it's a hard game to get first place. Thankfully, you don't need to get first place for every race to win the tournament. I think that in my race, in my tournament, quite a variety of different drivers were taking the top spots quite regularly. So I think if you're always in the top 3 or 4, you'll probably win it. And as I said, password for each race, so that's all right. It's okay. Okay, Festus Quest, possibly one of the more famous ones that I've gone through so far. Possibly the most famous that I've mentioned so far. Addams Family game with starring Festa, really, and the only one that I think, Festa's the character you play. The others do appear at some point briefly as little cameos, but basically it's you and Festa. And it's pretty hard work for the wrong reasons, really. This, like most of the other Sunsoft games that we've talked about already that have had issues to do with things like passwords, they've all been great games. And like Batman, I mean, I didn't really like Return of the Joker that much, but it is actually a very good game still. This isn't really that good a game, I don't think. I think that like it could have been brilliant and it should have been brilliant, but like there are elements to it that let it down quite a lot. Like for example, when you die, you start from the beginning of the game. That's just how it happens every single time, and it is annoying. You get infinite continues, which is nice. So that's a step above Blaster Master. But then starting from the beginning of the game each time is just a pain in the arse, especially when you're like late into the game. I mean, you can literally die on the final boss and start at the beginning of the game, and it is a flipping long walk. I mean, when I say start from the beginning, I just mean geographically. You will hold on to all the items you've got, the bosses that you've killed. previously will remain dead. All the items you've got are there, so it's just a case of like start from the the initial flag point of wherever you spawn at the beginning of the game, and then just walk through the entire map to get to the final boss again, die again, do it all again. And you can look at half an hour of walking to get back there. So yeah, that is just stupid. I mean, why can't you just have a spawn point? Even like you could just divide it into even like a quarters. You could start me, like the game is great, and it's a very linear map, and there's a lot of like sewer systems which are very boring to go through once you've done them a few times. They're quite easy as well, but they're just laborious, and you can't rush it. The enemies often, they have to be killed. A lot of the enemies, those kind of really annoying type of things that you find where they just spawn loads of versions of themselves. So as you're killing them, they're just creating more of themselves. I don't know, it's just annoying. So it's very doable, but it's something that you want to take your time with, even when it's your third or fourth time walking through the game. Predominantly because you only got 2 hit points for the whole game. Now I found one more later on, but I think I read there's a 4th one somewhere. But essentially, it's pretty damn hard when you only got 2 hit points. I mean, a lot of enemies will only take half a hit point, and I think maybe once you get items later on that can take less damage. And obviously, there's health power-ups, but it's you're not gonna sort of look at your hit points and be like Super Metroid and be like, oh well, I've got 1, but by the end of the game I'll have 20. No, like you're gonna end with 3 or 4 basically. So yeah, it's quite hard in that sense. It's very long. Not too challenging in terms of crypticness. Like generally it is quite easy to know where to go. There's different houses you can walk around, but there is a bit of searching to find things, but not too bad, to be honest with you, not too bad. But anyway, it's a bit of a shame. I'm a bit iffy with it. Do I like it? Kind of, yes. I think it's quite a good game in some ways, but I think it's quite a bad game in others. So it's a kind of middle of the road, probably one of Sunsoft's worst in my opinion. So there you go. All right, this is the last game? No, got one more after this. So, The Flintstones, the rescue of a Dino and Hoppy. This is the only Flintstones game that came out here. Surprised that Dinosaur Peak didn't, which is quite considerably rarer Flintstones game in the States. Is that a PAL exclusive? Might be a PAL exclusive actually. Surprised at Dinosaur Peak, but yeah, not in the UK. So I didn't have it. If you're wondering, I have a huge collection on other consoles with lots of imports, and collecting just a UK run was purely a thing I did with the NES, and that was only because I don't know, I felt like I needed a target to work towards to collect a kind of full boxed set. I felt like having 234 games seemed realistic, and living in the UK meant that it was easier to perhaps get those games than some of the foreign titles. So doesn't mean I won't pick up more in the future, but if you're wondering, that's why. But I don't have that policy on any other console. I mean, every other console I have, I've got lots of imports, and I like my PAL games generally first, but I will always get imports as well. Anyway, off topic, back to the Flintstones. Taito. So Taito is generally a massive go-to label for quality, and when I see a Taito game, I'm usually like singing my praises a little bit, because they're good, they're well made, they're generally quite tough, in a frustrating way actually. Taito's got this kind of ability to kind of make you love the game but also want to strangle it. So is that the same here? Yes, a little bit, to be honest. I think so. It's not the hardest platformer, but it also is quite hard at times. Some of it's down to the control. I think Fred it takes a bit of time to get used to him. He's got some nuances to the way that he climbs, especially the way he climbs. It's quite annoying when you sort of jump and catch onto the ledge. I remember it's sort of like you catch on and it looks like he's about to fall off and then he grabs it. I don't know, you just have to play it, but it's annoying. His club, I think, has a strange hitbox. Maybe it's only the the lower half of his club, the bit nearer his hands that actually hits people, not the very end of it. I don't know. It's just a bit annoying. It's just got annoying things to it, which kind of overall challenge isn't too bad. No, like it really isn't. But there's an ice stage in there, which I think is possibly the worst ice stage that I can think of. I think it really is like one of the hardest ice stages because of the way Fred controls. It was really real hell to beat that. I think there are infinite continues. I think there are infinite continues. I don't want to be hard pressed here. I beat the game in 2 days, I think. So I played it one night and then I beat it the next day. So I feel like that probably meant that there were infinite continues. Oh, actually, maybe not, because why would I have done it over 2 nights then? Maybe there are limited continues. Because normally if there are infinite continues, I normally just play it till I beat it. So anyway, I can't quite remember, but it only took me 2 real attempts at it. But yeah, it's quite tough. Not too long, so like 7 or 8 levels. Yeah, another medium. It's better than Festus Quest, but it's definitely in that middle of the road terrain for me, where I'm like, is it good? Yes, it's good, but it's not great. Basically, that's my opinion of it. Okay, so the final game for F is 4-player tennis, aka top player tennis, I think, in the States. Licensed over there with 2 tennis players, Ivan, someone, I think, is it Ivan? I don't even know. No, I think I'm thinking of that racing game. I don't know. There's the male and a female tennis player who are licensed to top player tennis that was removed for the PAL region for whatever reason. So we just got a generic 4-player tennis. Regardless of the title, it's in my opinion the best tennis game on the NES. I've only got 3, I think. Tennis, this, and God, what's it? I can't remember his name now. Yeah, Jimmy Connors tennis. And this is my favourite. I think it plays the nicest. It kind of looks, possibly Jimmy Connors looks a little bit nicer, but it looks really, it looks good enough. And I think, tennis on the NES, the original black box game, did a pretty decent job, I think, for an 8-bit tennis game. But this improves on it a lot. And as I mean, the 4-player tennis mode, yes, it's got the 4-way multi-tap that you can play up to 4 players in one match of doubles. So that's really cool. Obviously, I was just playing against the computer, where you have a tournament mode where you're traveling around different continents and doing tournaments, and you're doing all the big ones that are there. And yeah, there's an overall leaderboard. So at the end of the tournament, if you want to win it, then you need to have won basically everything. So I think that when I finished it, I was the world ranked #1, and I'd won all the tournaments. Also that was good enough for me to call it. And yeah, I think, to be honest with you, it took a little bit of time to get used to, but once I understood how it played, it was quite easy to manipulate. It basically, what was the tactic? I'm confusing Jimmy Connors tennis, but there is a tactic to winning. I can't really remember. I know Jimmy Connors is basically smash it and then run to the net and just keep whacking and play net game. But I can't remember if that's what I did in this one as well. I don't think so. I think you learn how to play. I think this is the one where basically, like, again, I might be confusing with Jimmy Connors, but this might be the one where there's quite a lot of different people that you're regularly playing, like other players, and they've all got different stats. And so you enter a tournament, it's kind of luck of a draw who you end up playing, but their ability doesn't really change. So they're like, I don't know, let's call him Jim. Jim, if he's like really good, he's always really good. So if you get him in the first round, he's really good. If you get him in the final, he's really good. Equally, say Sean is crap. And if you get Sean in the first round, he's rubbish. If you get Sean in the final, he's rubbish. So do you know what I mean? There's an element of luck about who you get for in which order throughout the tournament. So some games can be very easy, and you can win a final, 6-love every match pretty much, or you might be really struggling. So it depends on who you play. So it's luck of the draw there. But I think there's a password, I believe, for each tournament, so you can just restart and play the tournament again if you want to get a higher position in it. I think so anyway. Sorry, I mean, it's like tennis games, they kind of merge into one. This and Jimmy Connors tennis are very similar, so I'm trying to like decipher the two in my head, but it's good. It's my recommendation for a tennis game anyway. And obviously it's up to 4 player, so you know, if you want to do multiplayer tennis, surely that's where you go. Right, that's us wrapped up for the letters E and F, and we're back with the letter G next time. Thanks for watching.